Hey everyone, this is part 2 of the fall semester exam review for Algebra 1. We're looking at question number 7. Elaine is in the business of repairing home computers. She charges a base fee of $50 for each visit and $25 per hour for her labor. The total cost, C of X, for a home visit and X hours of labor is modeled by the function C of X equals 25X plus 50. Select a reasonable domain and range if she works a maximum of 8 hours. So let's talk about a few things. First, remembering that domain are x's and the range are the y's. That is important to note. Now it does tell us what x stands for. X stands for the number of hours. So the domain is the number of hours. And it says that she works a maximum of 8 hours. So some of these don't make sense if we look at them. For instance, look at the first one. In the first one, it says her minimum number of hours she's working is 0. That makes sense. And that she could work up to 50 hours. That makes no sense. I'm going to go ahead and mark that out. Because remember, we're looking at the ones that have x's. We're not looking at y's. Okay? And they shouldn't be listed. This is saying 0 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. First of all, her maximum is 8 hours, not 6. Secondly, you can get paid for part of an hour. So it would not make sense to list only those numbers. This one looks good, 0 to 8 hours, but there's another one that says 0 to 8. Keep in mind, we're talking about the domain and hours are the x's, not the y's. Okay, so we're not going to use that one. Right here, 0 to 250, she's not going to work 250 hours. No way. She's not going to work 25 hours to 50 hours. Nope. So really the only answer for our domain is right here. She worked somewhere between 0 and 8 hours because the maximum was 8 hours. So this right here, I'm going to write it next to it, is her domain, because remember, domain is x, the number of hours. Now, if you're not sure how much she would get paid, we need to think about what is the minimum she would get paid and what is the maximum she would get paid. So using this equation can really help us. So if I want to find out what is the minimum amount she would get paid, I would replace the x with 0 because that means she worked 0 hours. So 25 times 0 is 0, plus 50 is 50. So she would still have to pay that fee, right? But what if she worked the maximum number of hours, 8 hours? I used this equation. Keep in mind, the boxed equation is what I used. 25 times 8 is 200, plus 50 is 250. So that's the most amount of money she can make. So remember, we're looking at y's, okay? And in this case, it would be from $50 all the way to $250, not looking at x's. So in this case, it would be right here. This is our range. So remember, time is usually domain. In this case, it was hours. It could be days, months, years, minutes, seconds. It could be many things. And the range, a lot of times, is money. And using an equation that it gives you and plugging in the minimum amount of hours and the maximum amount of hours is how we did that. Okay? Okay, let's go ahead and look at question number 8, which is about slope, finding a slope from 2 points. There are 2 ways to go about this problem. One of them is to use the slope formula, which is on your formula chart. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you would label your points. So one of your points would be x1 and y1, and the other one would be x2 and y2. And then we replace them in the formula. y2 is -7. Usually I draw the division line first and draw the 2 minuses that are in the formula because you don't want to forget that those should be minuses. So I plugged in my y2, which was -7. You can see it right here. And then now I'm going to put my y1, which is -19. So see, there's a double negative there because of the minus that was already in the formula. In the bottom are the x's, which is -2 is x2, and 1 is x1. And of course, you could type this in to your Inspire calculator or Desmos calculator exactly as it is. Make a fraction, type in the top, type in the bottom. Let's see, -7, keeping in mind also that a double negative becomes a plus. So -7 plus 19 is 12. And -2 minus 1 is -3. And then we divide them and get -4. So this is our slope. Now, a second way to do it would be to put it into Desmos, okay? So keep in mind that if you're going the Desmos route, what you're doing is you're creating a table, which we've done many times. Put one of the points and then put the other point. Reminding you how to do that. On Desmos, you need to make a table by hitting plus and a table. And then you type in the 2 points. 1, -19 was one of the points, and -2, -7 was the other point. And then here we type in y1 tilde mx1 plus b, but you have to remember that the letter m represents slope, and you can see there that the slope is indeed -4. So using your calculator is another way of finding the slope, or you can do it by hand using the slope formula. Number 9, reading this problem, we're trying to find what is the rate of change for this situation and what does it represent. So first of all, rate of change is another word for slope. And when it says what does it represent, that means that it actually means something in this problem because it is a real world problem. And what does it mean? So let's find our slope. With a graph, all we need to do is do rise over run. So we have our initial point here at 0, 0, and I see another point right here. And there's an additional point right here. We've got 3 points we can pick from, okay? So I'm going to just go from the first one to the second one. So from 0 to 160, that's a rise of $160. I can see that right here on the y-axis. It went up $160. And then it went this way from 0 to 16, and that's 16 hours. And then we divide them and we get 10. That is our slope. Now in the real world, what does that mean? So in this case, it's a worker's earnings. So the worker earned $10, because you can see dollars here on the y-axis, per hour, what you see on the x-axis. And that's what our slope or rate of change means in this situation. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 10. More slope. Now, this particular problem is in standard form, and we like standard form, but the problem with it is that none of those numbers are the slope. Slope is represented by the letter m. And standard form, unfortunately, doesn't have a letter m anywhere in it. None of them are the slope. So we have to convert it to y equals mx plus b first. And then we will be able to find the m, the slope. So let's do it. We did it earlier. If you watched the first video, we have done this already. Okay, so let's look at it. The goal, remember, is to get y alone because y equals mx plus b, y is isolated. So to get y alone, we need to subtract the 3x on both sides. Always get rid of that x because the goal is to get the y alone, right? So get rid of that x. 3x minus 3x is 0, leaving us with negative 4y equals. Now you cannot subtract an x from something that's not an x. So the negative 3x will actually stay the same. And then that is a positive 12. So the positive 12 comes after the negative 3x. And it's really starting to look like y equals mx plus b now, but we still have that number in front of the y, which we are going to divide everything by that number, negative 4. Because any number divided by itself is 1. So 1y equals. Now, we know that 4 can't divide into 3, but we do know a negative divided by a negative is a positive 3/4. And 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. So this is the equation, but remember, this question asked us for the slope, which is the value in front of the x. So our answer is that m equals 3/4. All right, guys, that is the end of video number 2, and there will be more to come. Thanks, guys.